meeting. If you would all please stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so everyone's aware this meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be shown online and on local access television. First on the agenda, we have an application for a transient vendor, hawkers and peddlers license for George Russo, Hockomock Plaza, for the dates of April 20th and 21st. David, did you handle this, or Linda?
Yep, so Mr. Russo is here. He is looking for Easter weekend to have a transient vendor license. And so he would operate out of Hockomock Plaza. Most of his information has been processed through the office. However, there's a couple of other things. So what I would ask the board to do, as we do with all licenses, is to, if you have any questions, ask him. And if you're inclined to approve it, then just approve it subject to all final documentation being accepted by the office.
Application approved subject to submission of all final documentation through the office.
Okay, I have no questions on them. I've known them for years. I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Thank you, and I would ask you to do the same thing with your 7:05 appointment for Mr. Lambert as well.
Is there a motion? This is
I'll make a motion for Keith Lambert, doing the same.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have stop
All
sign.
set. Take care, George.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Stop sign and warning signs at Charles Street and South Elm Street. David, could you explain this?
Yep, so we've had a couple of residents could be concerned about no stop sign on South Elm Street as you merge onto Charles Street and then eventually onto Route 106. And as a result, I've asked the DPW director to take a look at it, who is here tonight. We've also went ahead and had a conversation with the police chief as well. They both concurred that we probably should do something. Well, I'm just going to ask you to bring it to the map if we could.
Map, sure.
So as you can see, South Elm Street is the main road on the left-hand side. It comes down to an X where Charles Street and South Elm meet. Right now, there is no stop sign there, and on Charles Street, Chris, I think that there's a yield sign there.
Correct.
So we'd be looking to add a couple of signs to both of those stops and try to mitigate any potential accidents from occurring. State law is that you need to take a vote on it if you would like to put a sign there. I also have to post it in the newspaper and inform the residents that we would be approving it. I did not do that prior to the meeting because if it's a no vote, I obviously don't want to waste taxpayer money. If it's a yes vote, then it gets implemented after the newspaper article is posted.
Chris, how do you feel about that? Essential?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. The street has increased its volume, immensely over the years, and I've seen a lot of close calls because folks coming through the intersection heading up Charles from 106 have the right of way, and the folks coming down South Elm have a yield sign, but if they don't slow down, they can certainly have an issue there. So I think a stop sign at the end of Charles is a stop. This would give a second stop sign. I also asked Old Colony Planning Council their opinion, and they agreed it would be fine to do so.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to grant.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
And the same thing on Sunset Avenue. Sunset Avenue, as you can see here, is a very small road. It leads into Sunset Ave. And there's been new construction up at Sunset Ave Extension. And people exiting Sunset Ave Extension onto Sunset Ave, there is no stop sign, no yield sign, no other sign. So right now, people are literally just driving, merging straight into Sunset Ave. And anybody who is taking that corner is not expecting oncoming traffic. that seems to be a pretty legitimate request. So again, I have spoken to the DPW director along with the police chief. We all feel strongly that we should put a stop sign there. As mentioned earlier, if the board is inclined to approve it, I will then post a newspaper ad as a requirement of the law. Once that is posted, we will then implement and post a sign.
Yeah, I'll ask Chris how he feels about that.
Yes, I agree. It's definitely a new, with being a new street, Sunset Ave extension. It's a bad corner as it is, Sunset Ave and Progressive Ave. And I think it's an extra piece of caution coming off of Sunset Ave extension.
I'll make a motion for the signage at Sunset Ave Extension as requested.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Lambert is here. He's probably unaware that you've already taken your vote. So if you want to inform him.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
we already approved it.
Oh, you did? All right.
Yeah,
Sorry, I tried to get here a few minutes late. All right.
Yeah, no,
So the office will be in touch with you if there's any additional documentation needed.
I have the lease here. Thank you.
And just please keep in mind, your application calls for just flowers and plants. So that's all that's allowed that's being sold there.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, David had asked that we don't take action on right now.
Yeah, there was an error with the number of boards, so there's no action to be taken on that item.
Okay. We do have a appointee from a couple meetings ago, Janet Carlson, who wasn't able to make the meeting a couple weeks ago, but is here tonight just to introduce herself to the board and.
Jenna Carlson?
You want to just introduce yourself, say a few words, and that's all.
I have no idea what I'm supposed to say or what I'm supposed to do. I just thought they told me to come here, and here I am.
All right.
So if you have a question, I'll answer it.
Other than just to thank you for volunteering to help out and be involved.
Looking forward to
Appreciate
it.
it.
Yes, yeah, we appreciate it. We're definitely in need of volunteers. We have a lot of committees that do have vacancies, so we greatly appreciate you volunteering for this.
No problem.
You're welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you. Am I good?
Yeah, that's all. That's all. Thank you.
That's the hot seat.
Yes.
Okay, and we also have the ratification of a new employee in the assessor's office, Daniela Hilson. David, did you want to walk us through the hiring process
Sure.
that you went through?
Yep, so as part of the Board of Selectmen hiring process, this is a collective bargaining employee, which you oversee and sign. As a result, we placed the advertisement out and we received over 400 applications. I named a search committee. The search committee was as follows: Steve McCarthy, Chair of the Board of Assessors, John Donahue, Principal Assessor, and Linda Torres as the Assistant Town Administrator, HR Director. The three of them looked at all the applications that came in. They brought it down to 11 applicants for interviews. From that 11 applicants, they whittled it down to 5 finalists. One person dropped out. I interviewed a total of 4 finalists. We also did a query check and a background check. And after all of us conferred and interviewed her, we felt that Daniela was the best fit for the position. She met with the Board of Assessors earlier, and the Board of Assessors have no objections to the appointment. So I would be looking for the Board of Selectmen to, she's here to introduce herself to you, and I'm looking for the Board of Selectmen to ratify that appointment.
Okay, thank you, David. Daniela's in the back.
You want to just go up and just introduce yourself?
Hi,
Good to meet you.
I'm Daniela Nelson. I have been working as an administrative assistant for the past 12 years, and I'm very excited about this new position in the assessor's office. And I would begin next Thursday, and I just met the assessors, and I met Tammy from down there, and I'm even more excited now that I've met everyone.
Great. We're glad you're here. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
So we need does anyone have any questions for Daniela? Okay, So now we just need a motion to ratify employment.
I will make a motion to ratify Daniela's appointment.
Second motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, ratify non-union personnel contracts. We have the town administrator and the police chief. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to ratify the contract.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? And ratify the FY20 non-union personnel contract amendments for the Department of Public Works Director, Council on Aging Director, Inspector of Buildings, Zoning and Enforcement Officer, Fire Chief, and Treasurer Collector. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to ratify the contracts.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
I would,
Aye.
could we just have a brief discussion?
Sure.
Quick question. David, I know on the contracts for town administrator and police chief, you looked at ranges,
I did.
and communities, you did that as well with these,
I did.
contracts as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Budget hearing, Southeastern Regional.
Good evening. How are you? Does anyone need copies of the budget? I know you've received them, but I do have.
It should be in your packet.
I did bring extra ones if it's easier.
Thank you very much.
I have them here. I printed them out, so there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How's everything going over there?
Very good.
Okay.
Enjoying some of this nice weather. So tonight, as we usually do around this time, is share kind of where we're at with our budget and the impact it has on West Bridgewater, and also speak to anything you'd like me to speak toward in terms of the Southeastern Regional School District. I'll start off on the front page, our FY20. Oh, hey,
Go ahead.
I'm joined by Colleen, as you all know Colleen. She's represented from that represents West Bridgewater on our school committee. So our total FY20 budget request is $28 million. This is for the entire district. $28,589,574, which does represent a 4.7% increase over the current year. Just a couple things I'll point out on that first page, which is that our budget is based on the foundation budget and based on the required minimum local contributions. So we continue to we know that that education is a big expense, and that we try to be as cost conscious as we can. So we continue to operate at that minimum required contribution rate. Transportation is a requirement for regional school students. We can't charge for transportation if they live more than 2.5 miles away. The state is supposed to reimburse the communities for the cost of transportation. The key there is subject to appropriation. And they're slowly trying to kick it up a little bit, but it still hasn't been fully funded. The closest it got was about 90% funded about 8 or 9 years ago. Then it went down to 29%, and it's back up to about 70% or so. So that's the cost for transportation of the students, unless the amount of aid that you get from the state. So that's the total. That's all 9 communities. Again, this first page is everyone. In the other expenses is our capital bond bill from the renovation project that we did, the $30 million project that we did several years ago. We continue to pay the majority of that through our adult ed receipts, and the $192,000 capital assessment is the same that has been on the books for over 20 years now. So that was a promise we made when we did the renovation, and we were able to hold on to that. There's ESCO payments that need to be disclosed at budget time. That was a energy savings project that we did about 8 or 9 years ago now. After 3 years, it falls outside the budget, so that was phased in. The good news is under payments under Chapter 40, Section 13D. Those are payments for future buyback for vacation and sick days and so forth. That is fully funded as of this year, so there is no assessment to the towns for that. moving forward. We anticipate that remaining fully funded, so that's good. And then for the first year, the school committee has voted to start to fund the OPEB reserve, $50,000, but out of its own E&D account, not out of any kind of local assessment. All right. Let's kind of go on to the second page. West Bridgewater enrollment is up slightly. Our total enrollment is 1,531 students, up 22 students from the previous year. And in West Bridgewater, it's up slightly, 33 students, from 47 to 50. West Bridgewater makes up about 3.3% of the population of students that attend Southeastern. The assessment, I'll go on to the next page, I'll drop right down to the bottom. Right. Again, I can, if you have questions, I can go back to any of this information, but the assessment for FY20 for West Bridgewater is $598,925, which is an increase of $43,497. So each year, a few years ago, I started, I think, is it the next one, just a comparison from previous years, if you wanted to see kind of historical, district-wide. And then the following page, that looks like a bunch of pie charts and so forth, kind of shows where West Bridgewater is in relation to the other 9 communities that we serve. The cost, the per-pupil costs are the same in terms of what Southeastern receives. It doesn't matter if it's students from Brockton or Foxborough or West Bridgewater. The difference is the amount that the community gets in state aid. So you can see where Brockton gets 77%, or $13,946 per student in state aid. West Bridgewater only receives $6,131 from the state, and that's based on the aggregate wealth model of what under that formula each community has the ability to raise in terms of education costs. So that's kind of, if I just kind of go to the next to the last page, you'll see a couple of things. Overall, it looks like West Bridgewater, the enrollment is up a little bit, both at Southeastern and in the school district. You're up from total population of school-aged children is up 1,102, from 1,102 to 1,126, so it looks like about 24 students, additional school-aged children from the previous year. And then what I'll point out is from a school committee in terms of what we have control of, the school committee has control of, at minimum, the increase is that $40,697. That's set by the state. So that's anything, that's minimum, and that doesn't include transportation and so forth. So I just want to point out that the amount that of flexibility that the school committee has in terms of the increase or decrease is pretty much 99% of it is set by the state. And you can see likewise, I don't know if you've done the West Bridgewater budget or where that's at, but at a minimum, you're seeing an increase in required contribution. And the biggest reason for that, if you go back one page, is West Bridgewater actually has the highest, this past year had the highest growth of any of the 9 communities. 5 points. So that's great, great news for the town. 5.63% in municipal revenue growth, which means property values and also income that was generated in West Bridgewater. So basically, to really simplify the formula, they take that line 13, required local contribution, 7.6, multiply it by 5.63, give you that preliminary contribution. So if you ever kind of say, hey, what do we think our education costs increase are going to be the following year? You could, when that number comes out off your cherry sheets, typically around the end of November, and you get that growth factor, you could take, whatever the required contribution is for this year, multiply it by that, and get a pretty close estimate of at least what the minimum amount of increase is going to be, so.
That's an easy number to calculate.
Yes, so you see they took $7,662,000 and multiplied it by 1.0563. So.
Could I interrupt you you for
Sure.
one question? Just, I'm afraid I'll lose my train of
Yeah,
thought.
yeah.
and
No, actually, my presentation is done, so now it's
Because
Q&A, yeah.
while I'm on the slide,
Mhm.
to make sure I understand what you said. So some of the key elements that go into the equation are the town's revenue growth in juxtaposition to its other towns that are have students at Southeastern.
All school-age children, so it doesn't matter where they go. So whether they go to Southeastern, well, it matters, any school-age children that go to public schools.
Okay.
So private schools don't count. But
Okay.
if they go to an ag school, or they go to West Bridgewater, school system, or they come to us, that's a total count. So that amount is 1,000, whatever, how many students? 1,126 students.
So I was just going by this
Right.
chart here
Mhm.
and how you came up with the amount. And my take of it, in simple terms, was that the more more significant or the greater increase we have in growth of revenue versus the other towns, and the more ability we have to raise money for education costs, it's to a disadvantage in the formula for Southeastern. So the more successful,
Not just Southeastern, to both, to all the schools.
to all the schools.
Yeah.
So the better we are at managing our business per se, our town, or raising capital, the more we'll pay.
The
for
less
education.
state aid you get. But the caveat to that is in relation to the number of students in the town, okay? So, for example, let's say nothing changed, which it would never happen, but let's say nothing changed, but you had an influx of 200 students, the amount you can afford stays the same. So all that additional money is going to come in the form of state aid. So now your per pupil cost will go way down. Does that make sense? So, for example, Brockton, right? A lot of school-age children in Brockton, okay? So when even though they have a lot more in terms of total property wealth, right, in terms of the total number, when you divide that by the number of pre-K through 12, that number is very low. They can only afford $3,479 per student.
So what if it went the other way versus increasing the population, reducing what we brought in revenue?
You wouldn't save anything.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you have less kids, your total bottom dollar would be the same. The state said, "Great, you got less kids. You could still afford all that money, so we're going to give you less." Yeah, it's counterintuitive. Yeah, more kids reduces your per pupil costs. It was actually a result of a lawsuit that was filed in 1993 that caused ed reform that generated this, which basically the finding was by the Supreme Court that more affluent communities had better schools because they could afford better schools. So there was a state mandate to change the formula. So that's when they came up with this aggregate wealth, and they said, well, we're going to use a bar. This is the minimum. You can pay more, but this is the minimum. And towns that can't afford, communities that can't afford that minimum, we're going to kick in the balance. Yeah.
And ironically, that lawsuit was the city of Brockton.
It was, yeah.
How about courses offered there now? I know, it's really changing times now. The same thing you taught over there years ago now, the children now are looking for other courses. Did we have to put any new courses?
Yeah.
Over there,
I would say that the newest courses, still probably when we did the renovation, was the legal protective services, dental assisting. Our engineering program has expanded. We're introducing this past year, we introduced cybersecurity and digital forensics as a specialty program. But all the programs are totally different. I mean, if you go into an automotive, no one even looks at the hood, under their hood anymore because they can't know what's there, right? But it's all computerized. It's all so really we still have those precision machining. What used to be the old huge machine shop is now scaled down to about 20%. But everything is done on a CNC. Everything is designed on a computer. So it's really modernization of a lot of those things. So yeah.
Be more up to date on that, yeah.
Yeah, and we're, this year, we're gonna get about we're over 900 applicants already. We accept 375. I don't know if there's any other questions or.
Did you have, was that everything? Did you have?
Yeah, I think so. I just kind of, again, I know it's a lot, and you know, and I don't, you know, I can get into, you know, the formula if you want. I can get into, you know, some more, you know, specifics about, you know, anything. I don't know where you want me to, if there's anything you want me to. But you know, the bottom line, the assessment is up 40 something thousand. Was it 44, I believe? 43,497. So,
Are there any other questions?
Do you know what our cost per student was last year?
yeah, so if you go into into a sheet, and I actually skipped it because there's a mistake in it, and I'll get you the right sheet. It's a sheet after that one that you're asking questions on, which is a profile of just West Bridgewater. The error is in the middle piece there, which is factors affecting assessment. You see where it says previous year 51 and current year 47? That's actually that chart wasn't updated for some reason for West Bridgewater, and I got to fix that. I just noticed that. That's waiting outside. But so the per pupil cost for the kids that go to Southeastern is up $161, and if you compare that to and this is I'll just put a caveat because I have no idea what the FY20 budget is going to be for West Bridgewater Public Schools. But based on that number that I showed you on the next to last page, your per pupil cost for West Bridgewater students is going to go up about $446. For students that attend, you know, that attend West Bridgewater High School or middle school or elementary. The enrollment, the 10-year projected enrollment is up 47% from 2014. Our per pupil costs are up 11%. And you can, you know, there's, again, for comparison, if you wanted to do that, compare that to what it'd be like if they were a West Bridgewater High School student. And you can see actually the per pupil costs from West Bridgewater are almost the same in terms of what it costs for a student to attend West Bridgewater Public Schools and what it costs for them to attend Southeastern. $11,978 as opposed to $11,259.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chris?
Good evening.
Good evening. Start with 4215.
Okay, so the Public Works budget, which we pretty much revamped last year because we combined four budgets together to create the new Public Works. We've had one full year with it, and it has worked out quite well. And I don't have any increases in any of the lines. I added one new line at the very end, which is a inspection of the dam down at the town park, which needs an inspection every 10 years. And that's the budget amount that we figure it's going to cost. So I put that in as an additional line item.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions on this? That's the GIS person,
That's,
that we talked about.
I'm sorry, that's the other thing,
Yeah.
Anthony, I
So
meant to
that
mention
was,
too, yeah.
In line 5115.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the GIS person we've been talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, what was the other thing?
50 of it, right? Is that right, David?
Yes.
50, yeah.
So the rest would just be the increases for the DPW.
Yeah, contractual.
50,000 for a full-time GIS person? You think you're gonna find someone?
The water department is kicking in.
They've budgeted 15. So we're hoping, 60 to 65,000. Some of it we're gonna need to buy a computer and that type of stuff, but doing some preliminary homework and research, we think probably 55 to 60,000 is the target that we'll shoot for.
Snow removal.
Snow removal, I had asked Sue last Friday for an update, and I didn't, I thought I'd have it there today when I get back from vacation, but I did not have it, so you don't have a total, do you, Dave?
Not with me, no, I
Yeah.
didn't look at it today.
Yeah, so she was going to leave that for me, and I searched my emails in my mailbox this afternoon, but I can get that for you. I'm sure she has it. I know she has it. She's done a great job with it. She had a couple outstanding bills that she was finishing up on, but I'll have that for you.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Are there any questions? Nope. Street lighting.
Street lighting is pretty well set. We had got an increase on that last year. Again, Sue Kent watches that very carefully and pays it diligently, and she has helped in the past when it had to go up a little bit, and she did that, and she felt this year that it was fine the way it was, so we kept it that way.
Okay, any questions?
Nope.
And waste disposal.
Waste disposal has stayed the same as well.
Where's that contract up for the dumpsters and?
I believe we got several more years on
Yeah,
it.
so that would, full waste disposal contract was 15 years.
Oh, okay. That was, what, 4 years ago or so these had?
Yeah.
So the recycling increase, there isn't a need for more because of what we explained a couple months ago?
So we level fund that budget because I've always had a little extra money in that budget, because unfortunately come May and June, when people start doing spring cleaning or whatever, I can't run out of money. So we have historically had about another $12,000 to $15,000 in that line. The hope is that even though we've had the recycling surcharges, that I'll be able to absorb it based on that. Well, no, unfortunately, that's variable, and if people were stop putting things in the recycling bin, put in the trash, that fee will go down.
Chris, do you have an idea of what it cost last year to do the brush removal? So that was the first time in a while that
Right.
we've taken brush.
That was a one-day event for the tub grinder. And I believe it was $4,500, which was, pretty reasonable, but it was only because of the storm that we had, had done it. As a rule, we don't, but because of the storm we did, we had quite a pile, and when they mobilized the machine in there, he got it done in one day, which was incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something that we should consider doing annually for, I don't know how long you did it last year, 6 weeks or something.
Yeah,
Maybe do
something
it
like
for
that,
the month
yeah.
of May.
Yeah.
Every year, I think it's a pretty good service for, doesn't sound like that much money for the entire time to bring brush.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you folks. If you want, we can stage an area and do it. It does need to be monitored, because people will bring things that they shouldn't necessarily bring, but it was classified as storm debris last year, and for the most part, it went very well. It's the only way we can get rid of it. We can't burn it. We can't bury it. We have to bring a machine in, and a tub grinder would be the only way. We couldn't do it with our own, chippers. But that's not an expense that we could look into it and see if we can fit it into out of one of the lines that are there. And then, would you be interested in seeing it enacted this spring, right?
Yeah, so I'd like to do it every year. I don't know how the other members feel.
I burn.
Yeah, it sounds like a good.
And that's typically what I do,
Like you
is
said, it
I
is a
burn.
cost, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But for some folks who,
If you can find a way.
don't want to
Sure.
burn, that is a nice convenience for them to have.
Yeah.
You got a lot of use out of it last year?
It worked well, because obviously with that type of a storm, there's just so much debris.
Right.
And we also hauled all our stuff roadside. Instead of wasting the time to try to chip it, we hauled it in the trucks and dumped it there. And the tub grinder isn't picky of what it puts through it. It will take anything. It's covered with dirt. It's huge pieces of wood. It'll take anything. But we need to monitor and be careful because we could end up getting contractors get word that we've got a brush dump and start bringing things in. It's a little tricky to monitor from where it is because it's down the road, but we just have to keep our eye on it, so.
This might be a little off topic, Chris, but just the branches that hang into the road, is that the town's responsibility? Is that something you do?
Sure,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that like a regular
Yep,
schedule? So-
yeah, we're always on it,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
So having this grinder is useful for that as well, then?
Well, that would probably go through the chipper roadside, yeah. It's more of a storm-related incident that would be for the tub grinder,
Okay.
okay? You know, this winter, we may not see as big a pile. I mean, it hasn't been a bad winter. Hasn't been a lot of windstorms per se that brought down a lot of brush, so the pile might be a lot smaller than we would think, but it's a service we can offer. We know how much it costs. We know what we got done last year, and it was quite a bit. You know, so,
Basically, an agreement. Continue that.
Sure, are you making a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do we need a motion?
Need a motion
or-
for that?
No, we don't need a motion. I think, you know, the DPW director, I
Okay.
think, sees where the direction of the board is. I think Chris is making a valid point, though. We have to monitor it. We used to do this, but if it's not behind locked gates or closed gates, you get people, especially outside contractors, they just dump. And one of the issues historically that we've had, and you're going to laugh, but this is true, is Christmas trees. People are throwing Christmas trees with the light still on them. And they throw it in there, and that ties up the motor.
Right.
And then either we have an extra cost because the motor burns out, or somebody has to go in there and fix it. And this grinder is pretty large. I don't want to be putting my fingers and my hands into it. So unfortunately, it's a fantastic service that went well this past year. But because inevitably at least one person always abuses it, it potentially becomes a problem. So like Chris said, the monitoring of it is going to be key.
How long did you have it for last year?
I don't know, it was probably about 6 weeks. It was after the spring blizzards in March, and I think we probably kept it going maybe to the end of April, first or second week of May. You know, give people a chance to clean up, and once they start mowing lawns, they're usually beyond that, so. But we can try it out, we can set a date, you know.
Did you say this is your equipment? It's-
No, this would be subcontracted,
Subcontracted.
yes, yeah.
All right, so did you say you think you can fit it into your budget this year?
I think we can try.
And for
I'll-
next year, do you think we should make a change in here? Or?
Let me take a look at it in the next couple of days,
Okay.
and I'll see where I could come up with I want to get the daily rate and see if it's changed or anything since last year. And then I'll combine some different lines and see what I can come up with for you. Okay?
Sounds good.
All
All right,
right.
any questions for Joyce?
Yeah, I got something, not on the budget, I just want to inform them, but I know you was away this week and I didn't get a hold of you. Is on that Copeland Street light there, and Bob Moran's been helping.
Yep.
The only thing I just don't want to, we got the guy that's on it and the sub pole, but Bob told me it's what the town of West Bridgewater wants to light up that thing. And I told him I want the both streets to be lit up there. If you're going to do it, let's do it. Because when we asked to request it, got put up on the other end, that's fine, leave it there. It's a sodium light, it's a 400 watt, and I told Lon to call Bob tomorrow,
Okay.
and he will tell her what to request there. But I wanted to run it through you and Dave, and also the guy from National Grid. I don't want to leave anybody out here, see, so they all help out here. But Bob has been in contact with me, he's come down and looked at it, and Bob is the manager of community and customer management for the National Grid. And he's been very, very helpful down here. And past, when we had all these problems up on Manley Street. So he's great to call upon, and he just told me. I told him about the sub pole. I said, geez, that to me doesn't He says, what does the town of West Bridgewater want? He says, that's what we will focus on.
Okay.
So I just want to help you out, you know, but I just don't want anybody to be left out of this thing, you know what I mean? Because we need everybody, you know? Okay, Lana, so call him tomorrow, and get back to Chris and Dave, and then you can probably get, who is the representative that's down here? I don't know him. You girls, what's his name?
The gentleman I talked to is Joseph Cardinal.
Joe
You know him?
Cardinal, yes.
You know him?
I've talked to him, I've met with him
Yeah,
at
yeah,
different
yeah.
things, yes.
But I think he should be informed anyhow. and just
Okay.
Send a letter in for the request. I guess that, from what he says, that light costs around $60 a month? At 400 sodium? That's what he gave me as a figure.
That'd be $2 a day.
But it really lights up the thing, and that's really a dark area there. And so that'll be great. We can get that done.
Okay,
Okay?
sure, we'll work on it.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Chris.
That's it?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, I wanted to just leave with you for your reading pleasure. This is kind of what we've done the last year, okay? And then you can, if you have any questions, you can email me or whatever.
Thank you.
David, I gave you that.
Oh, thank you.
And it just kind of updates what DPW has been doing. I know you had asked me out last week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see you put up a catch basin up on the end of Grant Street there, this week there?
That one of the it had collapsed, I believe, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So it's
Thank
working out
you.
pretty good for you?
it's working out great.
Okay.
Good
Well,
night.
okay.
Thank you.
Night.
Yeah.
Thank
See
you.
ya. Yeah.
Okay, David, do you want to go through these next budgets?
I will. Moderator budget, 1140, level funded at $588. Seal of weights and measures, close to being level funded. We had cut the salary line a couple of years ago. He's looking to bring the salary line back up. It's $300, not a lot of money. We'll look at it. But again, up just about 2% year over year.
David, didn't we have a conversation at one point about rates?
Yep.
Okay.
So, the reason I had cut his salary at the time was because he wasn't bringing enough money in to cover his expenses. And what he has pointed out to me is that most of our fees have not changed over the last 10 years. In fact, the last time they changed was in 2007. So we looked at the analysis. He's absolutely correct. I wanted to bring that to the Board of Selectmen, have you vote to change the fees, so the same volume would generate a little bit more incremental income, but would also be consistent with what other towns charge. But it turned out we have a bylaw that actually sets the fees. So the Board of Selectmen voted to rescind Article 43, which is the seal and weights bylaw. That went to the bylaw study committee. I spoke at it a couple of weeks ago. They were in agreement that we should rescind it. They will be before this body in another couple of weeks with their recommendations on all their bylaw requests. That will go to town meeting, and at that point, hopefully town meeting approves the rescission of it. We can then relook at the fees, and the Board of Selectmen can then vote on the fees as they do with all other fees in town. Next budget is Historical Commission. It's $1,750. We level funded that year over year. Next budget is benefits, $9,100. It's a large budget. It's $6.3 million. It's up just under 6%. Many of what's in here is not entirely in our control. Almost, a third of the budget is our retirement expense, which is set by Plymouth County, subject to the rules and regulations of the state of Massachusetts. I have continuously informed people that 8% is what we should see on an annual basis until 2033, because under the Reform Act that was passed a handful of years ago, actually 1988, by 2033, all of them are supposed to be level funded or fully funded at that point, which means, in theory, we would only be paying administrative costs and not past retirement fees. Maya, the workers' comp, it's up 7%. We have shopped around. Maya offers us not just a really good price, but they offer us really the best insurance that we could find for workers' comp. We only do workers' comp through Maya. We do all of our other insurance through a different vendor because we get a better price on that. Health insurance, again, it's a big number. It's 3.5 million. However, it's only up 5%, which is a win in today's market. And since this year, I'm hoping to roll out a healthcare opt-out insurance plan, then hopefully we'll see some savings from that. The other two changes are we budgeted 3% increase on the FICA or Medicare because obviously as payroll increases, that all has to be paid. And the last one is in reference to health, accident, fire. You'll see that that's the same insurance as 5172, health, accident, police, which is zero year over year. And the difference is that unfortunately with fire, we had 2 large claims over the past year with disabilities, and that's obviously going to affect premiums. So on the entire budget, we're up a little less than 6%. In the last budget is 1950, which is insurances. That is what we do at a local level. We're budgeting about a 7% increase, which has been fairly consistent year over year. Again, we've looked at other insurance carriers as well, and inclusive in those numbers, we have to build in case there's any deductibles. But at 7%, I've always said this, we are insuring over $100 million worth of buildings. We're insuring millions in dollars worth of cars, and we do all of that for less than $300,000 a year. You know, if you do the same math on your house, we're either really underpaying or we're overpaying on our house because the rate is actually pretty inexpensive for what we get for insurance.
Thank you. Is there a motion to send all the budgets we heard tonight to the Finance Committee for review?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approve the meeting minutes of March 6, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And accept for review of the meeting minutes of March 20th.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And release executive session minutes of March 7th, 2018, March 21st, 2018, April 4th, 2018, May 2nd, 2018, May 16th, 2018, June 6th, 2018, July 11th, 2018, October 3rd, 2018, and November 7th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Communications from boards, commissions, and town officials. There will be the annual rabies clinic, May 4th, 9 a.m. for dogs, 10 a.m. for cats. It's $10, and it's held behind Town Hall in the DPW line. Public comment period. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak?
I have a couple comments,
Okay.
questions. David,
Yes.
the lights at East Central Street.
Yep.
Any word on when they will be working?
So they were out there working this past week. Bell Traffic showed up and installed all of the electronics that they have to install. The problem is that if you looked at, you'll see that there's a pole there that is owned by National Grid, and they still not only have not moved it, they still have not given us a time as to when they will move it. We've attempted to apply pressure at multiple levels. But at this point, National Grid still has not come out to move the pole, and so until they move it, we can't go 100% operational. The only other last item that we have to do there is currently, right now, there is temporary markings on the ground, and we are going to have to just put down our full permanent markings, but we will do that once the pole gets moved because the pole's in the way. So that's the only thing we're waiting on. National Grid got the pole out tomorrow. Within a week, we'd be operational.
Okay, and they're just not responsive at all, not even giving us an ETA as to...
We have received no ETA. And I can tell you that there has been lots of attempts.
Okay. Maybe we should just publish the phone number for National Grid for everyone, and they can call, because clearly we don't seem to have any influence on them for a safety issue, so...
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not uncommon. We had the same issue in the center of town. You remember that on the CVS side, there was poles there, and they were sticking out a couple of feet, and that went on for months. It doesn't just happen in West Bridgewater. It's happened in at least one other town I worked as well, that people are literally driving around poles in the middle of a brand-new road. It is not an uncommon problem. I'm certainly not here to try to belittle it at any level because I'm pretty frustrated. And every single time that I call, it consumes my time. When I have the engineer call and write letters to the people we need to write to, we are paying him money. And so it is consuming our energy and our time, but they're not being responsive.
I don't know if this is anything Bob Moran can help you with. They would call him, 508-482-1283. He certainly would probably jump in and maybe get some answers in. The only thing I think is the Old Colony Planning Council, of course, they're doing a study, and the study is comprised of all the communities in this area in West Bridgewater. Singles right out. We are the fastest growing town in this whole area. And it's going to be up for the final vote when he gets it all together, which I will bring it in then. There's building going all over this town, and they got a projection that West Bridgewater will have 10,000 population in the year 2040. That's what they got projected. I think we can use this as a when we apply for grants and things like that too, because you see what's going on. I talked to the building inspector this week. He's pretty busy in there, but that's a fact. West Bridgewater is fast growing, and what I saw over there is a cultural night. I know you guys missed it over there. It's probably one of the best times I ever spent. You go over to the high school the other night there, and where I'll tell you, I was really proud of being a leader of this town. I saw the children over there who I had a chance to talk to, and the parents. And of course, the food, and I realized it. The people in this town, they come from so many countries, it's unreal, and they had that food over there. And I suggest, this is the 4th year, I didn't even know anything about it till they invited me over there, but I suggest that next year, that we all together there would go over there, because it's really quite a night, you know, and like I said, I was very, very proud of, be able to be over there and interact with the kids, and of course the drama club put on a show afterwards there, but it was just great. And if you like to eat, because I don't, it was just a super night. So, I don't know, I know we got one of the assessors over there, and she must be feeling it in there too. They're busy. New people, and you notice even houses that are just sitting there. I see up on North Elm Street, there's the one that got burnt up there. Somebody's bought that. And then down the street, there's been a house, it's on the other side of Spring Street. It's been sitting there for years, and now I understand they're on the move on that. And then the house over in Matfield Street at the curb, that's being,
that's all been
it's a
redone.
new house being put there, so,
Yeah, they move pretty fast on that one.
well, so this town is on fire, believe me, and like I said, and it's great that we have the people that are working for us that make it happen here. I mean, we got a fine staff. I think it's great. Okay, that's all I say.
I did have one more, and David and I had talked about this earlier. There's concern about the dumping going on at the Shaw's Plaza and up onto the access road to Copeland there. And you said you were already on it and talking with the Board of Health.
Yeah, the board.
They were well aware.
Yeah, so we've received a handful of complaints. I went up there and visited the spot last week, saw firsthand as to what it is that residents are complaining about. Linda then reached out to the Board of Health. The Board of Health has sent numerous letters in correspondence over to the owner of the plaza who owns that road, because that is private property. At first, he was non-responsive. However, he did show up, or he did attend a Board of Health meeting this past week, and he has made a promise and a commitment to the Board of Health that he will clean up the area. I went up there today, armed with that information. There is a dumpster at the end of the parking lot right before you access the road. There is a dumpster there. In the rear of that plaza is much cleaner than it was just a couple of weeks ago. So there's no doubt that they've started on it. The road still has the same debris as I saw a couple of weeks ago, but he's only been doing it for a couple of days. So hopefully we will start to see some nice improvement there.
Is he a new owner of that
Yes.
plaza? He is, okay.
Yeah, I know this has been a problem for years up there, and this year, as far as the plowing goes, there wasn't much room anyway for two cars to exit down there, so, I know, I told Chris about that because, and, it's always been, who owns that road? Does West Bridgewater own it? Does Coit own it? So now we know who owns it.
Now it's private, so again,
Yeah. So-
I mean, look, they should do a good job of keeping it clean, therefore it's not a public health nuisance. And the other is to plow it so that way people can use it if they choose to. However, I will remind anybody who's watching this telecast, it's private. You enter at your own risk. It is a private road.
Yeah.
Technically, you're trespassing on somebody's private property when you use that road. So, again, we have no jurisdiction or ability to be able to do anything except for it being a public nuisance. But when people drive on it, they are driving it on at their own risk.
Town
Thank you.
administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, just a handful of items. One is that in response to the policy, is that I signed off on the field day parade that's handled every single year from the YAA, which will be held on April 27th. They're using the town hall parking lot in the public roads. Next FYI to the board is an unfortunate one, is that we have done a lot of work over the past year to try to get approval from Safe Routes to School through the state of Massachusetts. We were looking for $400,000 for grant money so we could start construction and reconstruction of sidewalks. Unfortunately, although they did select other towns, they did not select the town of West Bridgewater. They have kindly requested that we apply again, which we will.
They give us a reason?
They just,
Just
there is a
deny us.
form letter in there, and I'm sure it's just the amount of requests versus the amount of money that they have. One nice piece of information is that along with the DPW director and Linda, the assistant town administrator, we met with Mass DOT on March 12th because we are recognizing the need not only to widen Route 106 and get funding for it, but also to install a light at Matfield Street and Route 28 and do it with as much state money as possible. And out of that meeting came a request that OCPC provide a safety audit to the state to justify the use of funds. OCPC, within 24 hours, approved our request. It is in the process of conducting that audit. Mass DOT has also informed us that they are open to the idea of potentially putting a light there. They would rather maybe see some other widening and some markings, but they are potentially open to it. And they have also stated to us that if they do not secure the funds and we would like to do it, that they would at least provide us a waiver if we were to also to show the proper engineering costs, engineering designs. Under my next announcement is a census announcement. This is per request of the town clerk. It's unfortunate. We all do what we can to save money on behalf of the taxpayers. As required by law, we make our request for census. We have about 5,000 voters. Almost 1,000 people, 20% of our registered voters, have not returned their census. So as a requirement of the law, we have to send out a second notice, but that costs us almost $500 in postage. It's a waste of money. I mean, if people could just please do us a favor.
You don't
and
return it, can you vote?
No.
Oh.
Although, some people will tell you, which is accurate, they just re-sign up for voting at that time. So they don't return the census, then they can just reapply for, to be re-engaged for voting. They can do it. The negative to that is that as your population increases, we have the ability to get more state funds through state aid, or potential federal funds. OCPC, Mass DOT looks at our infrastructure for vehicles when we're talking about funding for lights. So it's really important for us to be able to make sure that everybody is adequately counted. So it's unfortunate, but if people could return that census, that would be helpful. And hopefully next year we do it on the first mailing, we could save some money. And the last is just a notification to the town and to the board that we do have an election coming up, which is next Saturday, and that there's a candidates night on April 10th, which is a week from tonight. and there is one contested race, which is for the Board of Assessors. And so people will be allowed to ask questions of that contested race, meet the other people that are running, and then hopefully show up and vote on that Saturday.
Any questions be submitted beforehand?
Yes. They can
To
be
you
submitted
or the
to the
town
town
clerk?
clerk.
What time is that candidate night?
Yep, it'll start at 7 o'clock. Based on the amount of candidates that are unopposed, we expect that
That's at
debate
the
to
high
start
school?
about 7:20. Yes, it is.
Okay.
The denial from Mass DOT for the sidewalks, the safe routes, that's separate from any funding we might get through complete streets.
That is
For
correct.
sidewalks.
That
So
is
we
correct.
still have hope for the sidewalks in this area through that funding, right?
That is correct. Yeah, I mean, I applaud Chris Iantelli as DPW director. We're chasing every grant that we can.
Okay, with no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.